Welcome to the Health Babes podcast with Doctors Becky Campbell and Crystal Home, where we talk everything health. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Health Babes podcast. Today, we have Dr. Anna Maria Temple. She's a holistic pediatrician with the mission to inspire, educate, and empower families to raise healthy kids with less medications. She is an eczema specialist, best-selling author, and TV expert. Today, with everything we have going on in the world, we're going to speak with Dr. Anna on the things we can do to protect our children, especially from things like RSV, the flu, and especially COVID with everything we've been going through. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited that we can make this work. This is wonderful.
Yes.
So Anna Maria, let's get into, what can parents do right now to help protect their children?
Yeah, I get this asked all the time. And I'm like, and I'm not going to be a big fan. People are not going to be big fans when I say this, but the first thing that we're going to do when we want to protect our babies from all these viruses is we have got to decrease our sugar intake. Mm-hmm. And it's, people are like, no, seriously, but what supplement? I'm like, okay, well, supplements don't work unless we make lifestyle changes, because otherwise it's just basically glorified medication. So it is the hardest thing to do in our babies and our children's lives is to decrease sugar, especially with Halloween coming up. But we can take some small steps. You can start with just one meal a day. Look at breakfast, look at lunch, look at dinner. For example, if let's say for your breakfast, your child does one of the traditional yogurts that has a lot of strawberries in it, shall we say, a lot of sugar, that you can change it to a plain yogurt, drizzle of honey, and maybe fresh strawberries. Or you can even take your current yogurt that you have and you can cut it in half with a plain yogurt. And just by doing that, you've cut the sugar dose in half. You may say, well, that's weird. Like, why would we even go after sugar first? Well, sugar, one dose of sugar, 100 grams of sugar, which is one bottle of Coke, 2 pieces of cake, or a couple of Pop-Tarts, can stop our immune system from working for up to 5 hours. So after we give our children, a sugary breakfast, we send them to school where the boogers and germs await them.
And doesn't sugar feed viruses?
Sugar in itself, I do not, that's a great question. I've never looked to see it feeds bacteria. I have not seen that it feeds viruses because the virus usually has to use our cell host. That is a great question. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah, I would just from a guess, and I don't know the answer to it either. I would assume it definitely does because, think about all of our patients in practice. When you take, and a lot of people have Epstein-Barr virus and, that lies dormant and gets flared. And, when they're eating a lot of sugar, I notice that they really get flared. And then when we put them on a diet that they're not allowed to have any processed sugar, we really see that go down a lot, don't you?
Yeah. And, then I wonder, is it it should probably be both because then the immune system is working. If we're eating a lot of sugar, the immune system is figuratively out to lunch, is not doing what's supposed to be doing. So the Epstein-Barr is just wreaking havoc. And then all of a sudden you change their diet and their immune system is like, okay, let's get to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I want to give you guys a little tip for Halloween because I've been doing this for a long time with my kids and they're just used to it. They just know. What I do is we make something together. We usually do dark chocolate with almond butter, kind of like Reese's peanut butter cups, I guess you would compare it to. We make those together. And then I'll buy them the healthiest, a couple little things I can find at wherever, and make them their own little Halloween bags. And then we still go trick-or-treating and then we just take their candy. we dump it in the bowl. Yeah, we dump it in the bowl that when other kids come, because they don't want a pen or whatever.
Right.
So we give them candy, we give out the candy that my kids receive. So they still get to do the trick or treating and they still get to eat something that is really great. And it's still candy, but it's just a much better version. And it's kind of become this little tradition and they like it. So you can definitely do stuff like that with your kids.
That's awesome. And I agree. Nobody wants a pen. I'll tell you one of the things that I do in my house, which like my husband wanted to go hide in shame. Last year, I took a giant, like one of the coolers that you keep your drinks for parties. I rolled it to the end of the driveway, filled it with ice and put water bottles in there. And John was like, we are going to be that house with the water bottles. I was like, the wellness pediatrician cannot be handing out candy. And I know, right? I can't physically give him candy. But let me tell you, then he was walking home and he heard there was a bunch of girls, like middle school girls that were running by the house. And they're like, oh, thank goodness there's water. We're so thirsty. And he's like, no, you do not like the water. Do not give it positive feedback.
No, because sugar makes you thirsty and they're walking around eating candies and they're walking around. So they're probably, that was a really great idea. Might have to steal that one.
You have to steal. And my kids were like, okay, the only way you're allowed to put water if you can put it in a container with ice and make it like, I was like, okay, jazz it up. I got you guys. All right. I can totally do that. Yeah. Oh my God. My husband walked around the whole neighborhood. He's like, we are that house. We have become that house.
I know. We called the switch witch in my house. So we just take it and just completely replace it with something else. I mean, they go trick-or-treating and they'll have like a little something and then I'll switch it all. And they're happy with it, you know?
You know, one of my patients, I have my mama's day. Actually, the kids go, like my kids go trick-or-treating too. And then I take it later.
Yep.
But so my mama's day will actually, you return the candy and some moms give money. So then the kids can go to the store and grab like the Halloween present. And some moms actually go, okay, if you turn in your candy, I'll have a present, and they will buy something ahead of time. And the kids get to unwrap the present after they turn in X amount of candy, which I was like, well, okay, as long as the kids get something, they're pretty happy, and then less sugar.
It's so true. It's so true. So you talked about, limiting sugar. What are some other things parents can do right now to help protect their children?
Great. The other thing is I'll go back and forth a little bit with food and other things, but let the kids play outside. Oh my gosh, the weather is gorgeous. And there's just no excuses for the kids to play outside. And we know vitamin D it doesn't come from the sun. Vitamin D is in our body, and the sun helps us convert the vitamin D to an available form so we can use it. So when we're outside in the sunshine, we have the natural supplement, vitamin D, from the sun, with the help of the sun. And that can, not only that, but then the kids are running, they're playing in fresh air. Because one of the most polluted places, air qualities, is actually in our homes, which is so scary, right? Because we have all the cleaners and then we burn candles. And for fall, we put in like the different smells, and we use bleach because we've been brainwashed in this COVID thing. And so in a lot of homes, the indoor air quality is actually more toxic, which impedes the immune system. And we know that things like plastic, BPA, actually raises your risk of asthma and allergies. The use of bleach will actually shows an increased risk of kids having tonsillitis, strep throat, and flu. So going outside in the beautiful weather helps them breathe fresh air and get more vitamin D in their systems.
I love that. That is such a good point that I would guarantee so many people just don't know. I mean, even the VOCs, like in your house, just the paint, the carpet, everything, the furniture, the chemicals that are just all over, there's just so much going on in a house compared to being outside. And that's one of the many, many reasons it's so great for kids to get outside.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you ladies we all talk about the same thing, that, we all have our bodies like a cup, and we fill it with inflammatory stuff, be it the bleach we talked about, or scents, or processed foods, or sugar, or, dog dander, and fall allergens, and stress, and all this stuff. And so what we're trying to do by talking here today is how can we decrease our children's cup of inflammation, so when they come head to head with a virus, their system is squeaky clean and running smoothly, rather than being clogged up like a hoarder's paradise with all these contaminants that we're discussing.
What are some supplements that you recommend? I think you recommend 3. There's like the top 3 supplements you would recommend for kids right now, and why?
Sure. So vitamin D is hands down. I have so much research for that. Vitamin D has been shown to decrease your risk of getting COVID, getting severe COVID, decreases your chance of getting flu. People with adequate levels of vitamin D get over influenza much faster. Same thing for RSV, not to mention that strong levels of vitamin D actually help you have less anxiety, ADHD, eczema, asthma, and other chronic illnesses as well. So it's a powerful vitamin. And I think there's such a huge misconception. People are like, oh, it's summer. And I went outside, and so I have adequate levels of vitamin D. And I'm like, I am the fun police, as you may have known from Instagram. And I'm always like, actually, no one has adequate levels of vitamin D, because even though we think that we're outside all the time, we're actually have become an indoor society. And with current pandemic, what they tell us to do, stay inside, work from home, school from home, shop from home. So everybody's becoming even more indoor bound than previously. So vitamin D, zinc, so super important. And we should be able to get it from food. And I want to go back to vitamin D too. You can get vitamin D from food. It's just difficult. In an egg, a pasture-raised egg, organic egg, you only have 44 international units a day, and a child needs about 1,000, just to kind of give you an example. Sardines, you can get your child's vitamin D daily intake from sardines, but who eats sardines in the United States? Not many. So when it comes to zinc, we can absolutely get zinc from our diet, but we have to eat, oysters, obviously, and, a lot of nuts and seeds. And, then it gets even more complicated, because we don't know if our nuts and seeds are coming from a farm where the farmer's actually enriching the soil with the proper nutrients, because the nut's not making zinc, it's absorbing it from the ground. So zinc supplement, I find it to be, zinc is a deficiency I see in a lot of my patients, especially kids that have eczema and asthma. Specifically, have lower levels of zinc than my other youngsters. And then omega-3s. And again, back to my sardines. Omega-3s are amazing for the immune system and brain, and decrease anxiety, and in your joint health and your skin health. But again, very difficult, because unless you live on a coast, most of us don't eat fresh fish. And so we don't get enough omega-3, which is an essential fatty acid that is anti-inflammatory. And in our American diet, we get too much omega-6 from vegetable oil, canola oil, all the seed oils that are in all our packaged foods, like safflower, sunflower oils, grapeseed oil. Those are potent omega-6. And the more omega-6 we have in our body and less omega-3, the more inflammation. So we want to flip the scales and do more omega-3 and less omega-6.
Yeah, I've seen zinc work really well for anxiety.
Yes.
Because a lot of people with anxiety have that quick zinc deficiency when they get anxious.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. And all of these, for parents listening, all three of these supplements are readily available in liquids. If your kids don't take capsules or whatever, you can find the three of these in mostly liquids, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
What form of, Dr. Anna, what form of zinc do you like for kids?
So we can use zinc sulfate, has been studied in a lot of medical literature with great help for acne, for anxiety, for a lot of skin issues and stuff. Zinc gluconate actually has better absorption with less metallic taste afterwards. And zinc picolinate is my other one. So those are the three. You'll see a lot of other zincs, and depending on how it's absorbed in your body, it will decrease your risk of nausea. One of the side effects of zinc is nausea in a lot of kids and adults, and it depends on the formulation.
Yeah, we always tell them to do it with food, because you can get very nauseous. Yeah. So we know a lot of, parents are busy, and, it seems unfortunately that kids are left with a lot of screen time these days. So, how does that affect the immune system in a child?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you a story, Ray. I'm the wellness doctor, and I live in a glass house, so everyone can see what I'm doing. And my son clocked 46 hours of screen time last year during Zoom school. And that was in a week, 46 hours. That is more than a full-time job. What my man was doing, he was doing his online school for 90 seconds. I kid you not, my husband went into the whole history. He would do his classes in 90-second increments. And the rest of the time he would be on YouTube. And we were busy writing a book and doing our eczema program and running a clinic, right? And all of a sudden, boop, that one was under the radar. And I was mortified. And when children spend this much time on screens, what happens is their brain development changes. And, when I was younger, I'm 48. So when I was younger, you had TV and it was like the Smurfs at like 3:00 in the afternoon. And the rest was like paid programming on the one channel. So you were always outside. Well, these days, we have babies that are exposed to the screen, toddlers with the screen, and their brain is changing very differently than children that have been playing outside all their life. And when the brain changes, the brain communicates with our gut via the vagus nerve, which is a gigantic nerve. And in the gut is where our immune system lies. 60 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. So if the signals from the brain are abnormal, interrupted, go in a different direction, well, the gut is going to be abnormal. And we know that all the screens are causing anxiety, depression. I'm seeing rates of anxiety and depression in children I have never seen in my entire career. And they're isolated and they think they're talking to other people on Xbox via their microphones, or they're talking to people via Snapchat or Instagram. The human brain cannot make that distinction. To the brain, you're not seeing anyone. It's just the human brain needs energy from the person sitting across from you, reading facial expressions, engaging them. There's a huge dynamic that we don't even fully understand what happens when we're together as a community versus isolated behind our screens. And for the children, that increases their cortisol, because anxiety and depression increase your cortisol levels. The higher the cortisol, the less immune system function you have, because, for example, if you're running away from a gunman, you're not worried about catching COVID. Your body's like, I just need to run from the bullet. It's not going, oh, okay, well, COVID and I need to produce snot. No, your immune system goes sleepy and uses all the energy for the cortisol and all the hormones that go along with running away from the gunman, and the immune system gets put on pause. And so this is what we're seeing in a lot of our children that have been stuck in homes in front of screens for a year, and then they were sent back into school. And they're like, good luck to you. Hope you're doing good.
Yeah. And you know what I noticed too, because of the increased cortisol, there's a lot more obesity in children, and parents are saying, I'm not changing their diet, or they're not eating that much, and then I always ask, well, how much time are they spending on screens? Because we know it's raising their cortisol. And then we know that raises, especially, weight in the abdominal area. And also decreases melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. And a lot of kids who are on the screens a lot they're not able to sleep at night.
And sleep is becoming worse and worse, because now you have high cortisol, which decreases your immune system. Now you're not getting sleep, which decreases your immune system. Now, when you're sleep deprived, you eat more sugar, because when you're sleep deprived, you don't crave Brussels sprouts, you crave sugar and carbs. So now they're eating more sugar and carbs, and that it decreases their immune system. So already with the example you just gave, we have the trifecta of how their immune system is in the toilet.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about sleep, like how, especially at different stages, can you talk a little bit more like with babies as far as toddlers and how much sleep they really need?
Sleep is so important. And most Americans feel that sleep is a waste of time, because can you imagine how much more stuff you can get done if you just slept a little less? And, in our culture, we celebrate that, like, oh my gosh, you only got 6 hours. That's amazing. And then until you fall on your face sick from, having chronic EBV infection. But sleep from the beginning, as we go through the babies, obviously they're going to have in the beginning, they're trying to learn how to sleep. They need to nurse. There's a big balance between sleep and eating, because you can't have a newborn sleeping through the night. I don't know where we get that impression. Sometimes people are like, they're not sleeping. I'm like, they're not supposed to sleep, because then they don't gain weight. They can't. So babies have to wake up in the middle of the night in the first 4 months specifically, in order to get their appropriate nutrients to build their bodies. And then about 4 months to 6 months is when actually they develop enough levels of melatonin and other hormones to help them calm down and be able to rest a little longer through the night. When we get to toddlerhood, we are expecting about 12 hours a night with 1 or 2 naps. some parents will allow naps to go too long in the day, which affects the toddler's sleep at night, thinking that, well, that's better that at least they're taking a nap. And I'll tell you that long-term studies on brain development have shown that in toddlers who sleep longer through the night and have less naps, like less duration naps, shorter naps, they do better on standardized tests in kindergarten than kids who have giant naps in the day and less sleep at night. So we know the nighttime sleep is so critical to brain development for a couple of reasons. Number one, during sleep, we have 4 stages of sleep. And when you go into your various stages of sleep, the brain takes what you just learned and makes it into long-term memory. So when toddlers, what are they doing? They're learning about how the world works, vocabulary, put words together, don't run into the street. Okay, my children never learn that, but technically, ideally, we would like to not run into the street. So when we tell them that, they go to sleep, and then the brain says, okay, let's put that into long-term memory so they could recall it. And the same thing happens as they grow older. Elementary school kids, about 10, sometimes 11 hours at night. My teenagers who think they only need 6, they're 8 to 9 hours at night, if you can believe that. And on average, the average American teenager gets 6 hours of sleep at night. And isn't that incredible? And with every hour, so if they just had 1 less hour, so the kids that get only 6 hours of sleep at night have 2 times the risk of getting a viral infection just by the sleep.
Wow. It's so important for everybody, and it's so underrated.
Because everyone feels like, oh, well, you didn't do anything. I'm like, but that's when the brain wakes up at night and does its job. That's when growth hormones get stimulated. That's when you get taller. That's how I can get, especially my teenage boys, to like actually pay attention. I'm like, if you want to be taller, you have to sleep longer, because if the moment you wake up, your growth hormones going bye-bye, see ya. When we sleep at night, right, our leptin levels get regulated. Leptin is our hormone that tells us to stop eating. So if you sleep deprived, the next day you're like crushing chips and pretzels because leptin levels are too low, and ghrelin, which is the other hormone that tells us to eat more carbs. Well, at nighttime, if you don't sleep enough, that guy is having a party and increases and increases. That's why the next day you're like crushing the donuts. And the immune system, when we go to sleep, the immune system powers up. So listen up, my parents. One of the big questions I get, why do kids always get fevers at night? Because that's when the immune system powers up and is like, what? Virus? Hold on, must mount an immune response and then triggers a fever. When kids have eczema, their eczema flares at night because the histamines trigger at night, because that's part of the whole immune system. And for my elderly folks that have issues with dementia and cognitive memory, during the night, the brain cleans itself out of amyloid plaques, for example, in order to declog the system so we don't deal with dementia and brain issues as we age.
You know what's so crazy to me is how you said this earlier, how our society makes not sleeping like cool. Like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or, always grinding. I'm like, you're going to be dead sooner if you don't sleep. That's not something to brag about. You actually need to sleep. And like, it's just strange. Like, people really don't understand the importance of sleep. It's like one of the most important things on all levels.
Absolutely. And, our children are only going to learn from us. So if sleep is not a priority for us, they're not going to grow up thinking sleep is a priority.
No, I sleep 9 hours a night. So
Me too.
Me too.
My kids go to bed at 8 on the dot, all of them, every night.
Yes, it's awesome. So with the viruses, we know as soon parents, they get so worried when sickness hits the house, right? And then they get crazy with all of the bleach. You mentioned this. Can you talk a little bit about how that can increase the risk of illness a little bit deeper?
Sure. Bleach in a lot of countries is not even allowed. It's illegal, like in Sweden, Norway, Denmark. They're not even allowed in those countries. I don't know about the rest of Europe, but those countries I had looked in, because there was I told you that bleach study that came out was actually done in those Norwegian countries, which of course Lysol had a big issue with, so they went to court over it. But anyway, what bleach does, it kills viruses. And I'm not here to tell you it doesn't. It totally does. It kills the virus. But it also kills the good bacteria that cover our bodies inside and out. And for every 1 human cell, we are 10 bacteria cells. So we're basically 10% human. And the bacteria that are on our skin and inside our guts help us regulate our hormones, our immune system, keep all the other viruses and invaders at bay. Every single day, when you step out of the house, you are exposed to 2,000 to 3,000 antigens, which means viral particles, bacteria, fungus, etc. And the body has to continuously defend itself against that. If we're always spraying bleach to kill that one virus, well, we're also killing a lot of the bacteria in our skin and inside our gut, because you go, well, I'm not eating bleach. Well, when you spray your counters and then you put your food on there, or you put your hand down, when you rest your hand to like lean over the counter and then you rub your eye, bleach is now in your body. And, kids are disgusting. My kids lick counters and they're just disgusting humans. And so any surface that's going to have bleach, somehow that's going to end up in their mouth. So that is killing the bacteria, the good, the bad bacteria, viruses, and other things that we have inside our body and on top of our body that are part of our defense mechanism, which then weakens our barriers to the outside world.
What about the overuse of hand sanitizer too? I mean, that is a big problem in my opinion.
Oh my God. Like seriously, again, it's convenience. Can't spend 20 seconds washing our hands. No, must spray immediately for instant gratification. It's 60 to 70% alcohol, which we know kills the viruses. Well, once again, it kills the rest of bacteria. And I'll tell you, oh my gosh, even when I was in traditional medicine, I was so anti-hand sanitizers. I was like, under no circumstances, we wash our hands. So I'm thankful for that, because I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that we're spraying our body with rubbing alcohol. And then we're not even taking care of the dirt or really anything else. It's just like the one virus and then it really impeding the rest of our bacteria. So it goes in the same category as bleach in my book.
Yes, I agree. So you have some programs, right?
I do. I have, the rates of eczema have skyrocketed in the past 40 years. In 1970, the rates of eczema were 1 in 15. And then as of today, they're 1 in 5. And in some populations, 1 in 2. That's 50%.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And then we're tooting like, well, in the US, we have the best medicines, the best medical system, the best hospitals. Why are children sicker and sicker if we have the best system in place? Just things that make you go, And it's not evolution, because how is eczema helping us? It's not. It's making our life a living HE-double hockey sticks. And so anyway, so the rates of rise are incredible. And I don't feel a lot of people are getting the help that they need. They're getting the advice is topical steroids and they'll outgrow it. And we know that you don't outgrow it, that 20% of kids do not outgrow eczema. They take it with them in adulthood. The people that appear to outgrow, 75% of them develop seasonal allergies, 50% develop asthma, 6% develop ADHD and anxiety, because eczema is the body's first yellow or red flag saying something's amiss. We need to pay attention. And children are most affected when we look between children and adults. So it's escalating. And the reason I picked eczema is because my daughter, who was a C-section baby, so exposed to antibiotics at birth, had eczema, asthma, allergies, recurrent ear infection, recurrent croup, constipation, shockingly. And so she did. And then my son, my middle one, who had recurrent sinus infections, because he was my kid that was full of snot, like literally he would never be allowed to leave the house in this day and age. He was so disgusting. And the only answer they had for him was more antibiotics. So at the age of 15, he got horrible eczema, which we fixed with a holistic approach. And then my dog, my Rhodesia Ridgeback had eczema. And I was like, what is happening here? Why is my dog mangy? I don't understand. And the vet was like, it's just skin. We don't know. We're just going to do antibiotics and steroids. I'm like, really? Really? Even in this, this genre, we're still doing it. After the third time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at his food. And I made my own dog food, which I'm not really good at. But I did all this research on dogs, Rhodesians especially, who apparently have sensitive skin. I mean, the universe tends to tell you the direction you should take. And I figured I'd made his diet and his skin cleared. Okay, I did make him constipated because I don't know how to make dog food. So then I took what I learned and went to a holistic, actually pet shop owner, who then pointed me to the right food. My dog has not had a skin issue in 7 years.
Yeah. And for those who don't understand what happens with antibiotics, they kill all bacteria, so good and bad. And so when, a lot of kids who have been on rounds and rounds of antibiotics, their gut becomes really bad because we need good bacteria in our gut, and we, kind of clear all of it out. So then we get more histamine built up in the body, and then that's when the eczema appears, right, Anna Maria?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of, I have patients like, well, we never taken antibiotics. And I'm like, but do you know that not exactly what you said? And I was like, and additionally, in your food, antibiotics are in our food source and in our water system, right? It's like what the three of us talk about all the time. And so it's continuously coming in, which then is adversely affecting our children's skin.
Yeah, and it's in our meat a lot because they
Yes.
give the let's say a cow a ton of hormones to make them get big fast, and then they have to give them antibiotics to kill the infections that's causing. And then if you're eating those hormones that they gave them and the antibiotics. This is obviously when you're eating meat that isn't organic and all the things that we talk about that needs to be present to have a healthy meat, but just in regular meat that's just not organic and all that, that's what's happening. And that's another reason too with like milk, people who drink milk, or even don't you notice that probably over the last, I don't know, it didn't happen to me but after me, girls started getting huge boobs right at like 12 years old. And I believe it's because of all the hormones that are in the food. Don't you think so?
Oh, there's the hormones in the food, the bacteria, just exactly like you said, the antibiotics because if you kill the bacteria in our gut, we talked about that affects our hormone levels to 100%. And then, there's more and more sugar in our food. So now we have hormones in our food. We have more sugar. We have more antibiotics. And then our children are looking very different today than they looked in 1970.
I mean, seriously, I've seen girls that are like 12 with like a D cup. And it's because, and then when you talk to their parents about diet, they're eating all just conventional dairy, drinking milk, eating, meat that's not organic. And they have no clue that there's hormones in that stuff. They don't know.
They do not know. And you know what? This is going to be for the dads, for the fathers. So, because here's we have an obstacle. I mean, I'm sorry. I love the men. So it's not man bashing, but my men need evidence, right? Like us women, we're more like, okay, that sounds reasonable. Okay, we're going to go along with plan for the babies. You say anything for the babies. Us mamas, we're like, we'll do anything for the babies. The dads will do anything for the baby. However, they need evidence. They need the spreadsheet, the cost analysis.
Yeah,
and
they
evidence,
do.
right?
Yep.
So for any of my mamas that are struggling to get the partners on board, have them watch Food Inc. When you watch Food Inc. and you see the condition of conventional grown cow, chickens, and animals, the dads are going to be like, okay, I see what you're saying. And so you're not saying it because you can never say it because you're a weirdo. But if somebody on TV or on Google says it, then they're right. So that's why I'm always like, no, you got to put the third party in. So yeah, Food Inc. is an awesome documentary. It's old, but it depicts exactly what's going on in the conventional world. And it will make your partner's mind start chasing. At least that's how I changed my husband's mind.
Or just tell them that their daughters are going to have giant boobs and they're going to have guys chasing them who are only interested in having sex with them. And that will help get them on board.
That'll put a halt to it.
There you go.
Organic dairy and organic meat will be bought then for sure.
You have a master class on COVID. So tell us about that.
So what I did a COVID kick-ass class. And the way I put it, the reason I put it together, because everybody was so panicked and so horrified. And it was December of last year that was coming. So I'm like, all right, well, we got to tackle this on. And then of course the pandemic, here it is still going on. And the way I do it is actually go into 4 individual modules. They're 1 hour each, and they have Q&A, and they're directed to have simple takeaway action steps with exactly what we talked about today. But this can be overwhelming. When we listen to podcasts, we get so much information. We're like, we're ready to tackle the world, right? We're like, yes, sugar and sleep, and we're going to kick them all outside. And then you see your child's face and who starts whining and you cave because you're like, forget it. So I put together a class where I can give you some simple, actionable steps that are doable for anyone. And you can just do a little bit here, a little bit there. And then at the end, you will see there's a whole supplement section with protocols on how to do it if your child gets sick. But the message is not, let's take supplements. It's how can we make all these changes that are not only protecting us from COVID, but for the rest of the viruses as well. And it's, 4 hours of your life that you can do at your own leisure with awesome handouts and shopping lists and stuff, because my mission is to make everyone's a little easier and our children a lot healthier.
Right. It's like COVID right now is all everyone talks about, but it's like, there are other viruses out there, and everyone, like any time there's a symptom, they're like, I have COVID. I'm like, or something else. We remember back at, a couple of year and a half ago when there was other viruses that's still going on, but you can literally take the exact protocol as far as, what you're talking about in your COVID program or masterclass. And it does just really support the immune system. That's the whole point in general.
Yes. And in our town, we have RSV, which is respiratory syncytial virus, which is a respiratory virus that in little babies, it can kill them. And it causes so much snot, like the amount of snot that if I could turn the snot into fuel for cars, I would be a rich woman, but I can't. And anyway, the amount of snot this virus causes, and it causes a lot of respiratory issues. Our hospitals in Charlotte, North Carolina have been full with children with RSV since June. So June, July, August, and September. It has never been discussed. They just say, oh my gosh, well, we're really panicked. We should get kids immunized for COVID because they're all in the hospital. We call the ICUs. They're like, no, we're full of RSV. I'm like, okay, great. I'm glad that we're all on the same. No one is talking about other viruses. I completely agree with you.
Wow, that is so crazy. It really is. It's like there's so many other things going on too, but just all the fear and everything around that, right?
Correct. And that's part of the reason I do the class, so I can decrease fear, because like we were discussing, the less fear, the lower the cortisol, the better the immune system.
Yeah. So you have an eczema course, a COVID course. Where else can people find you?
Oh gosh, I would love to help your audience out on my Instagram. It's free information that I do, more topics than eczema, but we work on the immune system and other childhood topics of the day that are hot in the press. And I also have a YouTube channel. The easiest way is to find me at Dr. Anna Maria, DRANA Maria.com. That's my website. It will take you through all my different channels.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Anna Maria is so sweet. I know her in person, and she's so knowledgeable and really, really cares and is passionate about what she does. So we're so excited to have you today. And we really appreciate all the amazing knowledge you've shared with us.
I am so grateful for being here. And thank you so much for helping me help other families achieve a little less anxiety and more wellness in their families.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. And don't forget to leave a review. Reviews really help us, continue to be able to do the podcast, and also help us to guide others to know what could help them. So if you talk about Anna Marie specifically and how her episode helped your child or whatever, you get from the episode, that will help other people be able to find this episode too. So thank you for listening, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.